Whether you have a simple network environment need and structure, or a very complicated one where you have network isolation and traffic isolation, Hyper-V will allow you to configure those needs. It'll allow you to configure the performance needs that you have along with the failover capabilities that you might need. And we started this exploration out by looking at the different types of virtual switches that can be created. We started with the external virtual switch that ties right to the physical adapter on the Hyper-V host, and that you could put your VMs then on that virtual switch to utilize that adapter. We also looked at the internal switches, which isolates network traffic for a group of VMs, great for a development environment, but it still can talk to the Hyper-V host. So you could set up a routing solution that gets to the outside if needed. We also looked at the private virtual switch, completely isolated from the Hyper-V host. Again, great for lab and test environments where you need to ensure that it's not going to talk to anything on the public side of the network. And then we spent some time looking at network performance and talking about things like making sure, it's based upon the high quality, high end performing adapter and network that you have, the physical adapter in the machine, and that you could have multiple adapters, which we later turned into NIC teaming. And one of the important aspects is that you could go to a virtual machine and to its network adapter and set its bandwidth limits, limiting its bandwidth so that it couldn't overconsume too much bandwidth and take bandwidth away from other virtual machines. We also spent some time looking at MAC addresses. Since every network adapter must have a unique MAC address, we took a look at how Hyper-V does that from the pool of addresses, and that you could change the configuration of that pool. And if you needed to, for a special circumstance like software licensing, you could set a static MAC address. We spent some more time also talking about network isolation, going beyond that private virtual switch and looking at VLANs and the support for VLANs both through the physical network adapter from the Hyper-V host out to a switch, and also the virtualized VLANs that you can set up. Now, the synthetic and legacy virtual network adapters, sometimes I've run into this in the past. How come I don't have the hardware acceleration features that I expected to have? And it's because I had a legacy virtual network adapter. So we spent quite a bit of time taking a look at comparing and contrasting the differences between the two. And one of my favorite performance enhancing measures that you can take is add multiple NICs. And so we looked at both doing this on the Hyper-V host, where you could set then up a virtual switch that virtual machines would use, and also how to do it directly in a virtual machine. If you had a virtual machine that just that machine needed more network access, it was network intense, how you could configure NIC teaming for that virtual machine. Well, normally at this point, we talk about what's coming up next, but this is the end of the 7410 exam series. But I have an idea for you. I just happen to know that Greg has completed the 7411 exam series. So what's coming up next? Why don't you try looking at the 7411?